You are listening to an exclusive interview on Bass Musician Magazine. The interview starts now.
Hey everybody, this is Raul for Bass Musician Magazine, and today we have the great honor and pleasure of catching up with somebody who you've seen on Bass Musician Magazine so many times and in so many instances. The one, the only, Mr. Bryan Beller. Yeah.
I know, everyone's sick of me already. Thank you very much, Raul. Thanks for having me back.
Oh, it's a pleasure. You were just a whirlwind of perpetual motion, and we're getting caught up because you've had so much going on. Right now, when we're chatting, you've just wrapped up the first ever Aristo Camp.
Yes. It was a lot of bands kind of do like the instructional camps or the getaway camps, and we decided to do one of our own, which of course is kind of different and maybe a little bit looser than some of the other camps that we've seen. We did it up in Full Moon Resort in Big India, New York, and it was great. It was a small, intimate camp, and we had a lot of chance for individual interactions with the campers. They were great players, man. Some of them were playing straight down Aristocrat songs with us. They played Sweaty Knockers and the Kentucky Meat Shower and Texas Crazy Pants. These guys could play.
Oh, wow.
So, it was a lot of fun. And Chad Wackerman and Michael Manring and Francis Dunnery were our special guest artists. So we had a lot of interesting collaborations, playing together in different combinations. It was a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah. And especially, Michael has such a unique approach to what he plays. I've never seen anybody drop key mid-tune.
Nobody. I mean, we know, that nobody does what Michael Manring does, but this was the cool thing. The average Aristocrats fan is younger than maybe some of the people that we see on a normal basis, in their 20s and maybe early 30s. And so we have this group of people, and Michael Manring goes up there, and nobody's ever seen him play before. And most people didn't know who he was.
Wow.
And then he did his thing. And they were just like... I mean, you know what it's like. Remember the first time you saw Michael Manring play?
Oh, totally.
It's just like, he's not human. How do you do that? Yeah. And so everybody in the room, their heads were just ripped completely apart by Michael Manring, that was super fun.
Very, very cool. Having just finished this one, it sounds like it was such a astounding success. Are there plans for future Aristo camps?
Well, maybe. I mean, obviously it's difficult to figure that out right now because we have a whole world touring cycle in front of us. The new album, You Know What, is the name of the new album. It's coming out on June 28th. And we're going to do a North American tour this summer, all of July and August. And then there's going to be Europe coming up right after that. And we got a long way to project out into the future with our schedules. So it would be a bit if we did it again. But we all had a great time. So it's definitely a possibility.
Gotcha. And talking about the new album, because there's another album I want to talk about, but with You Know What, can you tell people, kind of tease them because the last time we were looking was Los Tres Caballeros, which
yes.
I applied myself and my Spanish accent so well. So what is the twist on You Know What?
One of the things I started paying attention to was how often everybody says that phrase. People will be telling a story, and then when they want to punctuate it, they'll be like, and then I said, you know what, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And we all have kind of a story where you use that phrase. And Marco Miniman, our drummer, had a really funny one where he was stuck behind a lunch counter line behind these people who were taking like 15 minutes, like try and figure out whether they were going to have a sandwich or a salad or a soup. And so finally he comes back, roaring angry back into the studio where we were. And he was like, and these people were taking forever. And it was like, I want to have a sandwich. No, I want to have a salad. No, I want Russian dressing. No, I want Italian dressing. And you know what? And then, this just like string of curses follow that. It's like Guthrie and I were just laughing hysterically because the whole thing was just so funny. But I mean, you know what is one of those phrases that everybody uses. It's almost like when people say, da 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 da. But of course, you know what is different than just, Yeah. Because what happens after you know what is usually like, pretty.
Yeah. Well, and I think linguistically, as we go through life and you kind of catch yourself saying a lot, you kind of go, I really need to make a conscious effort not to say
that so often. I know. And now I realize I find myself saying, you know what? And every single time I say it, I go, oh my God, I just did it again.
I know. Well, especially when you start tying in my years in the Navy, you tie in a string of obscenities to go with it. And then you're kind of going, hey, wait, I'm talking to children. I can't drop F-bombs in the middle of every other.
But fortunately, we're the Aristocrats, so we can do that. So the first song on the album is called D-Grade Fuck Movie Jam.
Yeah.
And it was because someone had given us a show preview in Raleigh, North Carolina, saying, "Oh, the Aristocrats are coming to town." And it was in like the hip alt weekly paper, and we're like, "Wow, they think we're cool." But the whole point of the thing was that they did not think we were cool. Oh. They were like, "Oh, these guys are shredders, and they're really good, but like if I don't want to sit through a whole set of their D-grade fuck movie jams." And I was like, first of all, fuck you. Second of all, that's a really good line, and I'm stealing it for a song title. So, that's how that came about. And that's the thing with the Aristocrats. We're always trying to figure out a way to take the piss out of something, have fun with it, poke fun at something. And so we've got, our new album, 9 songs, 3 from each of the guys in the band, Guthrie, Marco, and me. Mm-hmm. And I feel like we pushed ourselves a little further in the studio. I feel like as musicians and as songwriters, we kind of pushed the boundaries of what we know each other so well. We can do that a little bit more. It's been 4 years since we made a record, so we came in really fresh. And I feel like the sounds that we got are a lot better than the sounds we got on previous albums. But the bottom line is it's still a rowdy, crazy, kind of like anything goes Aristocrats album. And there's a lot of different styles on there. One of them is like a kind of a slow metal dirge. One of them is kind of like a bluegrass tune. One of them has a very Spanish flamenco thing to it. That song D-Grade Fuck Movie Jam is kind of like a blues rock. There's a lot of wah-wah in it. That's the joke, of course, right? What would a D-Grade Fuck Movie Jam sound like? Oh, the whole song is basically Bounce Chicka Wow Wow. It's like I just took that joke and just pounded it into the ground until there was nothing left of the joke but smithereens. So, that's how the Aristocrats work. We're just trying to, we play a lot of notes, but we're still having a lot of fun. And we're going to go on tour, and, we want to be people. Michael Manring is amazing, and all these guys who you walk out and you're like, oh my God, how'd they do that? But what we want to leave people with is we want to leave them laughing. Yeah. So
in my experience, the Aristocrats, you guys push the envelope, but to the razor edge. I mean, it is. Yeah. And every time I continue to see more, I'm kind of going, oh, there is more. I thought we had come to the edge, but now. So it's always compelling to continue to watch and say, okay, so where's this going to go now? And as I've said so many times, for a 3-man band, there's so much sound. I mean, it's kind of like if you closed your eyes, you'd think, oh, there's got to be at least 6 people up there, but it's all 3 of you.
Right. And so we did allow ourselves a little bit more production in the studio. So there is some layering and some stuff, and we're comfortable with that now. It's like we know that we can make an album that would be just a trio album, just 3 of us, all no overdubs. Mm-hmm. But we did a couple albums like that. So now we're letting ourselves run free in the studio and get some textures and everything like that. We know that when it comes time to do it live, that we'll play the live arrangement, and that'll be that. As long as it's fun.
Gotcha. Now, if people want to get that album, for your website, what's the best place for them to look?
Well, they could just go to the-aristocrats-band.com, and we have web stores there, both in the U.S. and also in UK for European shipping. So, just go to the-aristocrats-band.com, and it's all there. So that's the Aristocrats. And then there's this other thing.
Let's talk about the other thing.
Yeah, so my solo album. I haven't put out a solo album in 11 years.
Wow.
And so I realized a few years ago that I was starting to kind of have an idea of what I wanted my next solo album to be like. And there were some concepts that I had been mulling over that were kind of, how does the world really work? What is the power of intentional thinking, and what are the limits of intentional thinking? Where does intentionality meet reality, and how does that play out? So this is all really kind of a heavier, more serious stuff than we would do in the Aristocrats. Mm-hmm. And I think that's appropriate. It's like this is a different world. And so I started to hear music in my head, and I realized that not only was I hearing music for an album, I was hearing music for a double album. And not only was I hearing music for a double album, I was hearing music for a concept double album, a good old-fashioned concept album. And, when I say concept album, I don't just mean it's about this. It's like there's interweaving melodies and themes throughout the entire work that really tie it together as a unifying piece, like The Wall. Yeah. Like Pink Floyd, The Wall. Now, of course, it's incredibly audacious to say, yes, my album is like Pink Floyd, The Wall. But that is really what I'm shooting for. I really wanted to go for a big concept. So it's 18 songs, 88 minutes, and it's conceived as double vinyl. you know. So it's a double album that will be released on vinyl and as a 2 CD, and the packaging is super deluxe. It's like the CD is an 8-panel digipack with 2 20-page booklets.
Oh wow!
The double vinyl is a gatefold with a full-size 24-page booklet, and I want it to be kind of like that old-fashioned double album experience that, you know, maybe some people my age and older have had. I understand that it won't always be digested like that, and that some people will listen to it on Spotify, and, you know, streaming is like the new radio station, and that's fine. You know, I want people who wouldn't otherwise be able to hear it, but it is conceived as a double album, and the name of the album is called Scenes from the Flood. Here it is. Here it is. This is the CD version, and this is, you know, you open up the deluxe packaging and you get all this. It's one of those things where it's like, you know, you actually hold the thing and you know, you read the booklets and you see what each one of these songs are about, and there's artwork for each song, and, you know, you start to wonder, like, what is the story of this concept album? So that's the kind of world that I'm inviting the listener into when I'm doing this. And it took me 3 years to kind of get it all together. It took me 9 months to mix it, and there's 26 musicians on it. Some of the special guests, I want to make sure that I don't leave anybody out here. Joe Satriani's on one song.
Okay.
He really contributed, not just the solo, the melody, background guitar arrangements, everything. You know, we really worked together to bring this song to life. It really felt like it was something that he should play once I wrote the demo. John Petrucci is on one song from Dream Theater. Mm-hmm. He plays a guitar solo on the big climactic, epic, Indian-style progressive thing called World Class. Joe Satriani is on a song called Volunteer State. And then there's and Guthrie from the Aristocrats. Guthrie Govan is on one track. He's on the album Big Closing Ballad. And Mike Keneally is on a couple of tracks. You know, he's playing acoustics and playing crazy electric guitars. He's just doing his Keneally thing. Ray Hearn, the drummer from the band Haken, he's on 4 tracks. Gene Hoglan, the drummer from Death Clock and Strapping Young Lad and Now Testament, he's on 2 tracks. Joe Travers, my longtime friend and guy who plays with me in Satriani now, he's, I think, on 6 tracks. There's an acoustic guitarist named Mike Dawes, who's this incredible young player from the United Kingdom, just stunning. And he's on a couple tracks. Janet Fetter, really, really amazing baritone guitarist from Denver, who really, her album, This Close, really influenced a lot of what's going on here. She's on a really special track called The Flood. And we've got a sitarist from India named Rishabh Singh, and 2 violinists, Paul Cartwright and Leah Zager, who've done all sorts of stuff with the LA Philharmonic and played with Stevie Wonder, and just, you know, incredible musicians. And Jamie Kime, guitarist from Zappa Plays Zappa, is on one track. And Neely Brosh, guitarist who's got 3 solo albums out and played in Michael Jackson's Cirque du Soleil show. I mean, it just goes on and on and on and on and on and on. And so it's like, I've just been building this bomb in the basement for the last 3 years, and I'm finally ready to just show everybody what it is. And of course, I'm playing bass on the whole thing, but like, I basically turned myself into my own session player. Like, there's some songs where you wouldn't really recognize me as me. I'm playing with a pick, you know, doing some kind of like really kind of.
Oh no, not a pick.
No. It's like some kind of like really kind of aggressive, nasty kind of sound. And then there's a song where there's a lot of kind of wah lead bass and some slapping stuff. There's, you know, plain old just finger style P bass stuff. Then there's like kind of like modern kind of Spectre sounding in you know, stuff inside a metal song or a hard rock song. There's just all sorts of different bass sounds, but it's all to serve whatever song was going on in the album. So this is available from my website, bryanbeller.com. And if you pre-order, you get a free track right away. It comes out on September 13, and there's going to be a video probably out by the time everybody sees this. And there's 2 videos, actually. One's going to drop in July, one's going to drop in August.
Okay.
So this is like, it's obviously like a big deal for me.
Oh, totally.
And I just hope that people, I mean, like, you heard the stuff that was on there. It's not like what I was doing before. Stuff I was doing before was kind of like progressive fusion-y, but this is like a straight up progressive album. It's mostly instrumental, but I do sing on 3 songs.
Nice. Well, and you know, it's interesting when you mention progressive, because that has such a broad scope. And it was funny because as I was listening to some of, you know, Killian Duarte's work with Felix Martin, and you know, they were prog rock kind of dudes. And then I was talking to some guy out of Nashville, and they were playing something that sounded like classic rock to me, but he's going, no, we're prog rock. And I'm kind of like, well,
I know.
It's a very fuzzy definition.
It's so broad now. But this is really, some of this album is really just kind of fan service to like the people who grew up listening to these albums that I listened to. I mean, like, The Wall and Yes's Tales from Topographic Oceans, another double concept album. Even like 9 Inch Nails was like a big thing for me on this record. Like there's this double album called The Fragile that came out in 1999. I mean, everybody talks about The Downward Spiral. That's a big album, the one with March of the Pigs and Hurt and Closer on it. But the album that came out after that was this sprawling, massive work, and it had that concept album feel to it, and it was a double album. So that was a big influence on this as well. Pink Floyd is a huge, huge band for me. Just absolutely huge. I want all of my albums to feel like a Pink Floyd album. Like you're entering into this world. Like Pink Floyd had a thing about them that you just felt like you were stepping into their world. And those albums could mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people.
Totally.
I mean, it wasn't really about what they were thinking it was. I mean, like with The Wall, I mean, like, do people love The Wall because they really want to know, like, where Roger Waters' father was shot down in World War II in Italy? No, you know? I mean, that's not what it's about. Yeah. Even though a lot of it was about that for Roger Waters. And Roger Waters' alienation in terms of, like, being separated from, the audience and being kind of like a gigantic rock star and everything, all the rest of that stuff. That alienation was his alienation. Those issues were his issues. But, like, the people that listen to The Wall, they listen to him for their own reasons. The best music, I feel like, allows room for the listener to invest their own emotional content into what's going on. And so Scenes from the Flood explores a lot of kind of difficult subject matter, challenges that I think any human being would face, ambition and loss and some disillusionment with the way the world works. To go from having a plan and an intention and thinking everything's going to go, you want it to go a certain way, and then suddenly life just starts happening. And now you got to deal with kind of like everything in a bit like kind of a crisis mode. And what happens when that one big thing happens that really changes the way that you look at life, really shifts your worldview, something that is difficult to deal with and takes months to sort through. So these are the kind of things I'm dealing with in Scenes from the Flood. And I hope people dig it.
Oh, it's very deep. Well, and it's one of those interesting things that as we go through life, and music is a soundtrack to all the stuff that's happening to us, it's when a creative musician like yourself puts something out there that just happens to resonate.
Right.
That overlap of what's going on in whatever moment. And, it's the good. So we think of, like, we've got some good times. There's a happy song that'll come to your mind that you go, this was the one on the 8-track when I used to drive the yellow Volkswagen station wagon or something.
Right.
And then there's this other one that you're kind of going, oh man, I was so despondent. And then this just resonated. And then interestingly enough, for me, it's the musicality of it that reaches those areas, those deeper levels. I tend not to hear lyrics, which in a way tends to be a setback, because after the years, sometimes I've heard the same song and I'm kind of going, oh, those were the lyrics.
Yeah. Well, I chose my lyrical moments very, very carefully on this album. There's one song where it's spoken word, and it's the only song where the bass is the lead. It's not a bass album at all. It's just a regular, straight-up progressive concept album, and there's bass playing on it, of course.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of great playing on it from all these amazing players, but it's not a bass album. So there's spoken word on one song, and then there's singing on two other songs. And they're at very strategically placed parts of the story of the album.
Very cool. Well, and with all of this exciting stuff happening, and I know that you've done this amidst all the other things you're juggling quite adeptly, so many things.
Yeah.
Are you even thinking about what is coming next? Because I know it's almost ready to release. It's almost ready to step out and walk into the light on its own. Is there something in the back of your head?
I just know that there's going to be a lot of Aristocrats touring coming up. So, gotcha. I'm trying. It's been kind of a new thing. I was inside the world of my solo album for like 3 years. And I just finished it in May. And I forgot what life was like. Yeah. Without waking up every day and thinking, well, it's not done yet. What do I got to do today? And so I'm still getting used to it. And I'm very, very happy to be done with that, with the creative and the mixing part of it, because it takes a lot out of me when I get that far into something. So I'll just go where the schedule tells me to go for a little while. We'll just see what happens.
There you go.
But
well,
I would just, if you want to follow along with this stuff, of course, the Aristocrats album is already going to be out by the time this publishes, and we'll be on tour, and that's going to be awesome. If you want to follow along the kind of the publicity story of the Bryan Beller solo album, you can follow me on Facebook, Bryan Beller Bass, or Instagram is also Bryan Beller Bass, and on Twitter I'm just Bryan Beller.
Very cool. Well, man, again, it's always so great to catch up with you. I remember just the last time we were Skyping, you were in South America. And
God.
all of this stuff happens. So much occurs between then and now. And it is so great to catch up. Folks, you got to check this stuff out. I mean, I can't say it strong enough. And experience this music. Aristocrats, cutting edge. Then Bryan, and this is well beyond. So many times when people say, "Oh, I've got a solo album," it's going to be an hour of me doodling all by myself. And this is something very.
This is the complete opposite. 26 other musicians.
There you go.
Just doing this huge concept album. So
heavy hitters that we know and we recognize. It's one of those great things. I'm so excited for this release. I'm sure everybody else will be. So, folks, you know where to find this. Go out and get it. You've seen him here, Bryan Beller, on Bass Musician Magazine.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for bassing out with us here on BassMusicianMagazine.com.